Drip, drop, drip, drop. Darkness engulfed the room. Nothing could be heard other than the faint but steady drip of water echoing through the air. The air was moist, mingled with a horrid stench. Ishan jolted upwards as he regained consciousness, his breath quickening. What happened? Why is everything dark? He thought as the fragmented memories started to creep back in. He knew that he was waiting for something, but what was it? Right, he was waiting for the clock's hand to reach 12. But why was he waiting for midnight? He looked around the room, hoping to find something that would rekindle his memory, but he met only darkness. With a shiver, he realized that his clothes were drenched. Chills ran through his blood as he peeled off the wet shirt. Small drops of water splashed onto his skin, sending more shivers down his spine. He produced his phone from his pocket, the low battery percentage glaring at him. He let out a deep sigh before turning on the phone's flashlight. The flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, revealing a floor flooded with dirty black water. The bed was upturned, its mattress floating on the water, with cotton pouring out of the torn pillows. Many clothes were submerged completely, while a steady flow of water dripped from the cracked ceiling. Panic began to set in as he took in the chaotic scene. What was even happening? He needed to figure this out fast. Just. Ishan's heart skipped a beat as the old television in the room lit up with a buzz, its loud static reverberating through the air. It made his ears ring, but he felt a faint memory rub his mind. A strange series of words rang through his mind. Hide, seek shelter. But hide from what? Ishan thought. Just then a pit-pat came from the hallway outside his room. Ishan jerked himself toward the door, but before he made a step towards it, a rattle reverberated through the air. This was followed by a faint hum coming from outside his room. Ishan's heart pounded as the humming voice seemed to come closer towards his room. Splashing footsteps rang outside, coming closer every passing minute. For a moment he stood frozen. Clank! The door handle twisted, slowly opening. Adrenaline raced through his veins as he quickly backed away toward the bathroom. The door had just opened when Ishan slipped inside the bathroom, his heart racing. Ishan could clearly hear the splashing footsteps outside the bathroom door now. And on, through the jungle we go, through the concrete streets. Although the voice hummed softly with a low pitch, it rang through the air with intensity. Ishan put his hand over his mouth, making sure that no one could hear him. The hum suddenly stopped, magnifying the sound of dripping water. Ishan's gut tightened. Where is it? What even was that? Ishan hadn't noticed till then, but there were a bunch of things that had been dragged into the somewhat dry bathroom by the water outside. One particular object caught Ishan's attention. It was a wet newspaper clipping, peeled from the edges. NASA prepares for the worst. Asteroid deflection unsuccessful was written on it with big bold letters. A shard of memory hit Ishan like a train. That's right. NASA said that the asteroid would hit Earth near midnight and we had to take cover. But what happened afterwards? Is all of this because of the asteroid collision? The memories flooded through his mind instantly. Everyone had been quite calm when NASA announced that an asteroid was making its way towards Earth. This was because NASA had been successful in deflecting many of these asteroids before, and it had been regular news for the people by then. Ishan kept staring at the clipping, its words biting at his mind. The asteroid deflection was unsuccessful. Before you knew it, there were people ravaging the supermarkets, invading homes and gathering weapons. He had no choice but to stay locked in his home, expecting the worst. The once calm society was put in complete disarray. Now the asteroid had hit Earth, and there was nothing he could do. He remembered the impact. It had knocked him out of his bed. The furniture had collapsed, but there had definitely been no water. How did the water get here? He mouthed, looking around to see if the water had leaked out of the bathroom somehow. And what the hell was that humming? Such questions drifted through his mind when suddenly the bathroom door creaked open. Ishan gasped as a slender old man with bushy eyebrows and gray hair walked in through the door, his clothes perfectly dry and his eyes cloudy. Ishan backed up till he touched the wall. "Who are you? What is all of this?" He shouted desperately, his breath quickening. It was rather disconcerting to see a stranger in his home. There was a great chance that this was a survivor who had come to ravage his house. The old man examined Ishan with a frown. "Hello, fellow human," he said rather cheerfully, betraying his frown. "I need your help. Please help me. I need food and drink. Follow me, please." A strange memory pulled at his mind after hearing this, but he couldn't remember it. He squinted his eyes after the old man repeated the speech. Before Ishan could even reply, the old man repeated this again. This time his eyebrows seemed to lower. He grew increasingly tense as the old man kept on repeating the phrase, each time adding a new "please" to the sentence. Ishan thought he recognized the phrase. He had to have heard it somewhere before. But where? Suddenly, the memory flashed in his mind. NASA had broadcast a message right before the asteroid collision, specifically stating to avoid anyone asking for food and drink or to follow them. Hadn't they also stated that these people were not to be trusted? The old man kept repeating his phrase, each time getting closer and closer towards him. Ishan did not really know what to do. He shuffled uneasily, backing up until he touched the cold wall, which sent chills down his blood. The old man did not stop with the repeated "please" and kept getting closer to him. His eyes seemed to shimmer. Ishan took in a deep breath before yelling, "Shut up! Back away!" The man stopped immediately, scowling at Ishan. "My friend, I did not mean to offend you," he said in a pleading manner, looking down at the floor as if he had been scolded by someone. "Will you help me? Will you give me some food?" Ishan hesitated for a moment, sweating even in the cold room. "I would help you," he replied rather reluctantly, "but I do not know what is going on. What is all this water and what are you doing in my house in the first place?" "I thought you knew my purpose by now," the old man replied instantly, his eyebrows lowering. "I come here for food and drink. As for the water, I do not know what you are talking about." Ishan gasped as he realized that the floor was no longer flooded. The newspaper clipping was completely dry, and so was his jeans. He plucked up the courage to go past the old man and open the door to his room. His heart fastened its pace once he saw that his room was dry too, with no signs of a single drop of water. Ishan could barely comprehend what was going on. He felt a hand on his shoulder and looked back. The old man looked at him expectantly, with his hand on Ishan's shoulder. He let out a smile, his teeth displaying much decay. Ishan was just about to apologize when his brown eyes met with the old man's shimmering purple eyes. It could not be mistaken. A memory in his mind stirred. Although he did not fully remember, he knew that those eyes meant trouble. "I do not believe you," he said at last. There was a long pause. Silence filled the room. The faint drip-drop of water returned. Ishan felt his feet in the water once more. Shivers ran through his spine, but the old man kept staring at him with no expression. Ishan was startled when the man spoke again, this time with a softer voice. "You humans are so meek. It only makes our job easier. Sometimes you all are very easy to crack, while other times you act like idiots. Join us, boy. It will only be better for you." Ishan's heart fastened its pace as the old man stared at him, with a glare but with a smiling face. The memory hit him like a truck. The words of the NASA message ringing through his mind. They are imposters, not from Earth. Do not engage with them in any circumstance. Ishan froze in place. He did not know what to do. With a sudden jerk, the old man pulled himself towards Ishan and yelled, "Whom traham, whom?" Before Ishan could react, the man's body twisted and contorted into the form of a hunched, tall and slender figure. The hair grew into strands of long purple strings, while his eyes bulged into large black orbs, and his mouth stretched open as a slimy tongue protruded from within. A spiked tail jutted out, its bulbous end glowing in the dark. It let out a low-pitched hum before lunging at Ishan. Ishan's breath caught in his throat as he evaded the attack with a roll, causing the creature to crash into the sink. Water spewed out of it right onto the creature's face, giving enough time for Ishan to run away from it. He got out of the bathroom and into his own room before bursting out of it into the hallway, its high-pitched squeals trailing behind him. His heart pumped intensely as he splashed through the flooded hallway, hearing the hum of the beast coming from behind him. Suddenly, he tripped on something and splashed straight into the water. Everything went dark. As he looked up, nothing greeted him other than darkness. His phone had fallen out of his hand, and only God knew where it had gone. He got up hastily, his gut twisting as everything went silent. "Where is it?" he thought as he scanned the dark surroundings. "I am in the hallway. I have to get out of here." Suddenly, Ishan noticed a few sparkly things in the distance. He hesitated for a moment before silently plodding towards them. As he drew closer, he noticed that the sparkle was coming from some small purple rocks floating on the water. He let out a gasp as the purple rocks cracked open, releasing a load of water into the already flooded room. Ishan realized that these were fragments of the asteroid, and the water had definitely come from the asteroid itself, but that did not explain how the water had vanished before. Either way, all of it was extremely confusing to Ishan. Ishan jumped as the hum started again. This time it was aggressive and loud. Unease grasped him as the high-pitched humming mingled with the splishy splash of the footsteps started to grow closer. Without a second thought, he started running towards the front door. He ran as fast as he could, his lungs begging for a breather. The hum grew continuously closer. The green light drew from behind him. His bones chilled after the long shadow of the creature could be seen drawing up from behind him. He kept running desperately, tears streaming from his cheek. Soon he reached the front door, which was hanging on its hinges. He burst out only to be greeted by a sinister sight. There was darkness all around the neighborhood, except for the glowing purple rocks scattered throughout the ground. The houses in the neighborhood were partially broken, with many holes on their roofs. The trees around the place were upturned, some even leaking water. The purple rocks were quite big. More creatures emerged from the meteorites, some small and some big. All of them looked at Ishan curiously. Ishan just stood there in shock. Sweat trickled down his forehead as the creatures surrounded him before circling around him menacingly. He flinched as the creature who had been chasing him burst out of his house and joined the other creatures circling around him. "Back up, beasts!" Ishan cried desperately, stamping his feet. The creatures' tails rattled and crackled, their hums reverberating through the gloomy neighborhood. Ishan's eyes widened as one of the creatures stuck its mouth on Ishan's face. His screams cut off by the creature's mouth. Slime poured out of its mouth, spilling all over Ishan. "If this is the end, then goodbye, world," he thought as more slime poured out the creature's mouth. Ishan embraced death, but it did not come. He opened his eyes to find that the creature had taken its mouth off him. He felt different, somehow more fresh. He could see everything around him even in the darkness. Moreover, he was no longer afraid of the creatures. He felt strong and somewhat confident in spite of the situation surrounding him. "What has happened to me?" he thought, eyeing the creatures around him. He suddenly felt very hungry and tapped his belly. As soon as he had done that, his joints twisted and contorted to morph into the creature's form. The tongue projected out his mouth while his body felt much slimier. Although this did not hurt, he was confused but also not afraid. The other creatures around him bowed to Ishan. He followed almost automatically. "I am one of them. I am one of the imposters," he thought. "My life isn't ruined. This is merely the beginning of a new life." Although he had said this to himself, the depths of his mind reminded him that it was all over. It had taken him, and now there was no return.